forbidden for 70 years. A recording Helena Blavatsky left sealed in 1884, labeled psychologically dangerous. In it, she details the 7 post-death levels, revealing that the soul doesn't always perceive it has died. According to the manuscript, there is a point where the soul sees everything it could have been and failed to become. This video may be taken down at any moment, and what you are about to hear changes everything. It began with a box, old, worn by time, covered with a thin layer of dust, found in the hidden archives of the Theosophical Society in Adyar, India. Inside, a wax cylinder recording device and a faded envelope bearing a single instruction: not to be opened until 2023. Someone couldn't resist. Someone opened it early. And now this knowledge circulates through the shadowy corners of the internet, gets deleted, restored, disappears again. Those who know Blavatsky's voice, her manner, her strange calm even when discussing the most troubling matters, insist this is authentic. An interview that was never meant for the general public. India, 1884. During what appeared to be a simple evening gathering with her closest disciples, Blavatsky suddenly fell into a trance state. Her voice changed. It didn't sound like the Blavatsky they knew. It resonated with a depth that made the air in the room vibrate. The disciples, alarmed, but curious, quickly set up the newly invented Edison phonograph to capture whatever was about to emerge. For 3 hours and 27 minutes, she spoke uninterrupted, not as herself, but as a vessel for what she called those who know. She described in vivid and sometimes terrifying detail the journey of consciousness after physical death, not as religious dogma, not as spiritual metaphor, but as a carefully mapped terrain as real as any geographical location on Earth. The recording was immediately sealed by Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, co-founder of the Theosophical Society. He labeled it psychologically dangerous and wrote in his private journal that night, "What HPB revealed today could drive the unprepared mind to madness. Some truths are not meant for those still attached to material existence. By the way, from which city are you watching this? I want to track how far this hidden knowledge is reaching. Perhaps you're in a place where others have already begun to sense these truths." The wax cylinder remained untouched for decades. In 1907, following political unrest in India, the sealed box containing the recording was secretly transferred to London for safekeeping. It was entrusted to Annie Besant, who had taken over leadership of the society after Blavatsky's death. Besant added her own note to the container. "I have listened to a portion only. It is accurate. It is terrifying. It must remain sealed." The box changed hands over the decades, always staying within the inner circle of the Theosophical Society's leadership. In 1976, during a period of renewed interest in Blavatsky's work, a committee was formed to evaluate whether the time had come to share her final revelations. The recording was carefully transcribed, but the committee unanimously decided it was incomplete and inappropriate for publication. Their report noted, "The 7th level description is particularly concerning, as it contradicts established religious paradigms, while simultaneously confirming them in unexpected ways." Then, in early 2023, something extraordinary happened. The box appeared at a private auction in Vienna, accompanied by a symbol never before catalogued in any known esoteric tradition, a mirrored star with what appeared to be characters from an unknown language inscribed between its points. The buyer, remaining anonymous, paid 7.3 million euros for the artifact. That symbol, resembling a mirrored star, reappears in modern near-death experiences documented across 5 continents. People who have never encountered theosophical teachings report seeing it at what they describe as the threshold between worlds. Dr. Elizabeth Kuhn, a researcher specializing in consciousness studies at the University of Vienna, was granted limited access to the recording. Her initial report, published in the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, sent shockwaves through both scientific and spiritual communities. She wrote, "The precision with which Blavatsky describes certain transitional states of consciousness matches our most recent findings using EEG monitoring of terminal patients. How could she have known this in 1884, without our modern equipment or research methods? What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is how perfectly it aligns with accounts from various spiritual traditions while adding elements never before documented. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes similar transitions, yet Blavatsky's account includes specific details about electromagnetic interactions between consciousness and physical matter that have only recently been theorized in quantum physics. Perhaps most disturbing is how these revelations challenge our fundamental assumptions about identity, memory, and perception. If Blavatsky's mapping is accurate, everything we believe about death, and by extension about life, requires radical reconsideration. The question we must now confront is unavoidable. What if the greatest secret about human existence has been hidden in plain sight for over a century, waiting for us to be ready to comprehend it? As we delve deeper into the contents of this forbidden recording, I must caution you, what follows may fundamentally alter your perception of reality. Some viewers have reported profound existential anxiety after learning these truths. Others describe an unexpected sense of peace. How you respond may reveal more about your soul's journey than you realize. The story of how this recording finally emerged into public awareness is itself remarkable. Dr. Meera Patel, a specialist in audio restoration, was contracted by the anonymous buyer to convert the wax cylinder recording to digital format without being told its origin or significance. Using advanced acoustic processing techniques, she was able to filter out most of the background noise and enhance Blavatsky's voice to near-perfect clarity. What Dr. Patel didn't expect was how the process would affect her. During her third day working with the audio, she began experiencing what she later described as bleed-through memories, vivid recollections of events she had never experienced, including detailed images of 19th century India. She reported seeing Blavatsky sitting across from her, continuing the conversation when the recording was paused. After completing the restoration, Dr. Patel resigned from her position, sold her home in London, and relocated to a small village in the Himalayas. Her only public statement was brief but haunting. Some vibrations remain in the voice. Some knowledge changes you permanently. In late 2023, the first fragments of the restored recording began appearing on obscure internet forums, quickly spreading, despite repeated attempts to remove them. Those who listen report a strange quality to Blavatsky's voice, a resonance that seems to bypass the rational mind and speak directly to something deeper. And now, for the first time, the complete transcript and analysis are being made available. What follows is not speculation or interpretation, but Blavatsky's own words, finally revealed after 7 decades of silence. The first question we must ask is why now? Why was this knowledge deemed too dangerous for generations, only to emerge in our present moment? Blavatsky herself seems to have anticipated this, stating in the recording, "The time will come when humanity approaches a precipice of its own making. Then, and only then, will these words be necessary, not as comfort, but as map for navigation, when all familiar landmarks have vanished." Are we now at that precipice, and if so, what does Blavatsky's map reveal about the territory beyond? Let us begin with the first of Blavatsky's 7 post-death levels, what she calls the dream of continuance. This phase is perhaps the most disturbing, as it directly challenges our assumption that death brings immediate awareness of having died. After the body ceases, Blavatsky states, in a voice that audibly deepens on the recording, consciousness does not immediately recognize its changed state. It continues to perceive and interact with what it believes is physical reality. The person will still attempt to engage with the material world, to open doors, pick up objects, speak to the living. This is not a spiritual metaphor, but a literal continuation of consciousness in a state of profound confusion. This description aligns disturbingly well with accounts from hospice workers who report deceased patients appearing to check on medical equipment or attempt to communicate with staff for days after death. Dr. Robert Fenwick's 2021 study documented 328 such incidents across 18 hospice facilities, where multiple staff independently reported seeing the same deceased patient performing routine activities. Blavatsky describes this state with unsettling sensory precision. The soul feels a thickness to the air, as if moving through water. Sounds become muffled, colors slightly desaturated. Objects that once responded to touch now offer no resistance. Yet the mind creates phantom sensations to preserve the illusion of continuity. It is a half-world of echoes and reflections. The implications are profound and troubling. If Blavatsky is correct, there may be countless souls around us right now trapped in this liminal state, attempting to continue their lives, unaware that they have died. Your deceased grandfather might still believe he's sitting in his favorite chair. Your friend who passed last year might still be trying to call you on a phone that, to her perception, never connects. This state persists, Blavatsky continues, until the inconsistencies become too great for the mind to reconcile. The moment of recognition, when the soul finally understands it has died, brings either liberation to the next level or a collapse into a deeper dream. Some remain here for what would be experienced as decades, refusing the truth that stands before them. But what the soul faces upon awakening to its true condition is even more profound and potentially devastating. The second level Blavatsky calls the Hall of Reflections, and here her voice on the recording becomes noticeably strained, as if the mere description causes her distress. You do not see merely what was, she says, but all that could have been and was not. Every decision point, every path not taken, every potential unfulfilled, all exist simultaneously as viable realities. The soul witnesses not one life, but hundreds of possible lives it might have lived. She describes vast corridors lined with what appear to be mirrors, but instead of reflections, they show alternate versions of one's life unfolding. In one, you chose a different career. In another, you spoke the words of love you held back. In a third, you acted on that destructive impulse you successfully resisted. These are not fantasies, Blavatsky insists, but quantum potentialities that existed alongside what you call reality. The boundary between what occurred and what might have occurred is revealed as far more permeable than the living mind can comprehend. The sensory experience is described as overwhelming, a kaleidoscopic immersion in multiple simultaneous realities, each feeling equally authentic. Colors are hypersaturated, sounds contain harmonics normally inaudible to human ears, and time functions non-linearly, with past, present, and future accessible as directions rather than sequences. The existential implications are staggering. The regret experienced in this state is not merely emotional or moral, but ontological, a confrontation with the countless selves you might have become. Those who report near-death experiences often mention a life review, but Blavatsky's description suggests something far more complex and potentially traumatic. Some souls, she says, become entranced by particular reflections, especially those showing lives of greater fulfillment or achievement. They linger before these mirrors, experiencing a yearning so profound it creates a gravitational pull. This is the origin of what the living perceive as haunting. Souls tethered to the physical plane, not by unfinished business, but by unmanifested potential. This might explain why certain locations accumulate paranormal activity, not because terrible events occurred there, but because they were sites of profound choice points, where many potential futures hung in the balance. But it is the third level that most disturbed those who first heard the recording. Blavatsky calls it the chamber of others, and here her voice drops to nearly a whisper. The soul now experiences directly the impact it had on every other, being throughout its lifetime, not as abstract knowledge but as lived experience from their perspective. Every pain inflicted, every joy given, every fear caused, every comfort provided, all are felt with the full sensory and emotional intensity of those who were affected. The description she provides is harrowing, an immersive torrent of others' experiences, washing through consciousness without barrier or buffer. Physical sensations, emotional states and thought patterns of everyone the soul ever influenced, from closest loved ones to strangers briefly encountered, all become directly accessible. Here, the merchant feels the hunger of the child he refused to help. The cruel parent experiences the devastation their words caused. The kind stranger feels the ripples of hope their small gesture created. Nothing is exaggerated, nothing minimized, only the unfiltered truth of impact. Blavatsky describes this phase not as punishment, but as essential recalibration. Death, she says, is the greatest mirror of life. Without this profound reckoning, the soul would remain encased in the illusion of separation that defines physical existence. The sensory qualities of this state are described as synesthetic. Emotions appear as colors, thoughts become tangible textures, intentions manifest as harmonies or dissonances. The boundaries between senses dissolve, creating an experience of total immersion in interconnection. For some souls, Blavatsky continues, this level becomes unbearable. The weight of harm caused, the magnitude of suffering influenced. It overwhelms the capacity for integration. These souls fragment, shedding aspects of identity in an attempt to escape the totality of their impact. And here we arrive at the critical threshold Blavatsky describes. There comes a point where all this must be left behind, or the soul disintegrates. The accumulated weight of what was, what could have been, and what was caused becomes a gravity well from which escape requires radical surrender. This brings us to the fourth level, which Blavatsky calls the clearing. Here, her voice on the recording becomes suddenly calm, almost serene. After the intensity of recognition and reckoning, the soul enters a state of profound simplicity. The elaborate structures of personality, memory, and desire begin to dissolve. What remains is essence, the fundamental quality of consciousness, without its accumulated patterns. She describes this state as a vast empty landscape, not barren but pristine. Colors are reduced to their most fundamental vibrations. Sound becomes pure tone. Thought slows to such an extent that a single concept might unfold over what would be experienced as years in physical time. Here, for the first time since birth, the soul experiences itself without narrative, without the story it has been telling, itself throughout physical existence. Many find this terrifying at first, a form of death more profound than bodily death. Others experience it as liberation beyond imagining. It is at this level, according to Blavatsky, that souls often encounter what various traditions describe as guides, angels, or deities. However, she offers a striking reinterpretation of these entities. These are not external beings, but aspects of universal consciousness that the individual soul can now perceive without the filters of personhood. They appear in forms the soul can comprehend, drawn from its cultural and religious conditioning, but their true nature transcends all such categories. The fifth and sixth levels become increasingly difficult to describe in human language. Blavatsky struggles audibly on the recording, often pausing for long periods or using terms from Sanskrit, Tibetan, and what linguists have identified as pre-Sumerian dialects. What emerges is a picture of consciousness gradually reintegrating with what she calls the fundamental matrix, not as loss of individuality, but as expansion beyond its limitations. The sensory experiences become increasingly abstract, geometries of light, mathematical relationships perceived as emotions, vibrations that simultaneously create and describe reality. But it is the seventh level that caused the original listeners to seal this recording away from public access. Here, Blavatsky's voice changes so dramatically that audio analysts have questioned whether it is still her speaking. In the seventh, state desire ceases, and with it, time and identity. Consciousness enters a condition of formless unification where everything is and nothing needs to be. The boundaries between observer and observed, between self and other, between being and non-being, all dissolve not into nothingness, but into wholeness. She makes a statement that has profound implications for everything we believe about spiritual seeking. What you seek reveals itself only when you cease seeking. And here we arrive at the existential question this revelation forces us to confront. What if all your desires for reunion, for understanding, for progress, for meaning, are the very obstacles preventing you from reconnecting with those you've lost? What if the ceaseless striving that defines modern human existence, the pursuit of goals, experiences, possessions, status, is actually creating a barrier between our consciousness and those who have passed beyond the veil? But there is something else, a word crossed out in the original manuscript that might explain everything. Audio analysis of the wax cylinder reveals a term spoken and then immediately retracted, what sounds like return or rebirth, followed by Blavatsky saying emphatically, "No, that must not be recorded." What does all this mean for us, the living? How should this knowledge change how we exist? If desire binds us to lower levels of post-death consciousness, are our lifestyle patterns, our addiction to notifications, goals, achievements, possessions, creating traps that will fix us in the first levels after death? Our constant stimulation, our inability to be present, our attachment to identity and narrative, are these forming chains that will bind our souls when the body falls away? Consider the devices in your pocket, the apps designed to trigger dopamine, the consumer culture that creates perpetual wanting, all potentially programming your consciousness for limitation rather than expansion. Imagine reconnecting with your mother, your child, your beloved friend in the post-death state, only to find yourself unable to move beyond the hall of reflections because you're still fixated on desires that belong exclusively to physical existence. This raises profound ethical questions. Would you share this information with someone grieving a recent loss? Would you tell a dying person what awaits them? Or would you keep this truth in silence, allowing them to discover it on their own? There are Tibetan records that describe sounds similar to those heard by Blavatsky, and even older maps found in pre-dynastic Egyptian tombs that contain symbolism matching her descriptions of the 7 levels. The consistency across cultures and time periods suggests that this knowledge has emerged repeatedly throughout human history, only to be hidden away as too disruptive to social order. Dr. Kuhn notes in her analysis, if widely accepted, Blavatsky's model would necessitate a complete reconstruction of our values, priorities, and social structures. It is simultaneously the most liberating and threatening information humanity could encounter. Perhaps most compelling is how Blavatsky's description aligns with emerging models in physics and consciousness studies. The multiple worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, the holographic universe theory, the non-local nature of consciousness suggested by PSI research, all find curious parallels in her 19th century account. As Dr. Patel wrote before her, mysterious departure to the Himalayas. Either Blavatsky somehow accessed scientific concepts that wouldn't be formulated for another century, or these scientific concepts are finally catching up to what she already knew. What if these 7 levels are merely the antechamber, and there is an 8th, one that even Blavatsky dared not name? Throughout the recording, there are moments where she seems about to reveal something beyond the 7th state, only to stop herself. In the final minutes, she says cryptically, "Beyond this I cannot, I must not. They show me but forbid its description. It would alter too much, too soon." This missing knowledge, this potential 8th level, may be the most crucial of all. What if it represents not just transcendence but return, not just completion but new beginning? If you felt moved or disturbed by what you've learned today, you're not alone. This information has been carefully guarded for generations precisely because of its power to transform consciousness. By encountering it now, you've joined a select group throughout history who have glimpsed beyond the veil that separates conventional understanding from deeper reality. Like, subscribe, and activate notifications, because in our next video, we'll reveal the hidden message found in Carl Jung's final writings about the collective soul and how it relates to Blavatsky's 7 levels. We'll also explore the mysterious symbol found with the recording and its appearance in contemporary near-death accounts across 5 continents. Share this video with someone who is ready to hear these truths, but choose wisely. Not everyone is prepared to have their fundamental assumptions about existence challenged so radically. Remember, as Blavatsky whispers in the final moments of the recording, the truth does not always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it waits, patient as eternity, for the quiet mind ready to receive it. Leave a comment sharing which of the 7 levels resonated most deeply with you. Your response may reveal more about your own soul's journey than you realize. Until next time, may you find peace in the profound mystery of consciousness that we all inhabit together.